well. And I don't know if you want to say a couple words or.
Just how grateful we are that the police services proceeds from crime chose Powwow as one of the recipients for a good use for.
Yeah, we were really disappointed that it wasn't taking place. We want to make sure that you knew from our police service that we were very happy to have it back in our town. It's a wonderful experience for a lot of our community members. And we're looking forward to it. Looking forward to being involved. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Real? So we get a good for picture.
Man, get up there, dog.
Yes.
I didn't even go Saturday night.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're Special Olympians. And I think the whole community knows how important Special Olympians are to our police service and how important our police service is to these Special Olympians who, the torch run, the long connection, the support, the mutual admiration and respect is great to see. So we have a Special Olympians swim team here today, or part of the swim team, I assume, and we're very proud to be able to present you guys with some money to help with all your training and travel and all the events. Yeah, so we're really excited. So I congratulate each of you. Congratulations.
We're now going to have our very own Smith Smalls swim team.
That's awesome.
There's lots of room at the beach today.
So congratulations. Who gets money?
That's where we
This
time of the year.
There's Judy over there. Oh, there's one of the coaches too, and Trudy.
Come on. Yeah.
Here's your time, Trudy.
Well done, guys.
Ready to wear your medals. Great
Oh
to you.
yeah.
Really speaks to your accomplishments and success. Great. And our RJU services. Come on up. And for those who may not know what RNJ stands for, it's Reverend Norm Johnson. And I actually had the privilege of meeting him back in the 80s. And it was I did a little story on the newspaper at the time. So it was a very incredible man. And it's so awesome to see, here we are like 40 years later, and his legacy lives on. And so we're very pleased to provide you with support as well, $4,000.
Thank you.
And an opportunity, you want to say anything, please?
Yeah, we just want to again extend our most sincere gratitude. This money will go a long way in helping youth in towns and schools.
So I guess we'll get a picture. Congratulations. Our youth and give them their chance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the final organization we want to support is We Are Kids with Pistols Back. And it's created by Big Brothers Big Sisters in 2017. Yeah. And so long history of service to our community, Big Brothers Big Sisters. And maybe familiar back at that time, our youth center closed. And immediately Big Brothers Big Sisters stepped up and said, we can find a way to make this work. And for a long time, it's at Youth Arena Hall, providing great support to the communities of our community. Of course, now it's down on Main Street. Very busy place. And a lot of joy in there, a lot of good things happening with the youth, a lot of good programming, and a lot of support. So I'd like to welcome Jennifer Miller, the Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and Maya Maddie coming up. Thank you.
I've been told that these are two future police officers.
That's awesome.
So very happy.
Yes, you know who you can talk to and learn
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, she's a runner. I know she's a great runner.
Okay, so it's more for police.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything, Jen, or about the program?
Well, apparently I drew the short straw because nobody else wants to speak. But we do have a really large contingent of young people that are taking part in our program. And so this goes a long way to help put on dinner every night and cover our expenses and make sure these kids are safe and accessing programming that they might need. So
Let's take Elmsley Street North.
Well said, well said.
thank you.
Okay, awesome, great, thank you very much.
Shortest Jennifer's ever spoke.
If you need to, or there's Jen and Andrew who are introducing that, or if you want to stay.
Two more little presentations if you will.
Yep.
Let's yeah, if you can stick around. So Andrew Simmons, come on up. Let's welcome Andrew. Andrew is excited to have you here. Andrew, why don't you want to just talk about your background and what brought you to Smith Falls?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, I guess I would say, a pretty unique background. I actually played for the Bears from 2005 to 2008, where I met my wife when I was living in town. And so we started our lives actually in the U.S. in the state of Maine, where I became a police officer, served for about 8 years. Had an opportunity to move back to the area around 2019, where I joined the OPP, went through training, and then we decided, well, let's go back to Maine and pick back up where we were there. And then COVID happened, and we realized we wanted to be near family, and that was kind of more important than certain job opportunities type things. So we decided we'd move back to the area we want to be in and raise our kids here. I'm blessed to have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, and had an opportunity to test for the Smith Falls Police, and so grateful that I was offered a position, and I'm excited to get to working with the community and continue my my career.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And this is Rob Dobson, one of our board members.
Your Dale's son.
Yes, yep.
Chris Smear,
Thanks, Chris.
Jen Onger.
Hi, nice to meet you.
They hired you, so. Thanks, Andrew.
Well, Jed's idea.
And finally, before we get into the more
The bad stuff.
yes, cover part of the meeting, and it's not much fun. I'd like to welcome Aaron Tompkins. Aaron is here today to get Smith Falls Police Service. And
Aaron, I'm so proud of you. 20 years, April 26th is when you first joined.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
been a
20
long
years.
time.
Yeah.
The big thing is, I look around this room, and over a 20-year career, I can say I've honestly worked with every one of you in some capacity.
Yeah.
So my role with the police, my
that good or
community
bad?
services role, with all these fine folks behind me as well. So 20 years goes very fast. And I don't have young kids that I'm raising in the community anymore, but my kids are a little bit older. But we chose Leonard County, Crown Place, Smith Falls, so that's why I grew up in Crown Place. So I was happy to get hired here and had a pleasure working with everybody in the community. I'm so happy to hear the powwow's back. That's so exciting, and definitely taking part. And like I said, I've worked with everyone, every department or every community agency in this room at some point in my career. So just blessed to see everybody here, especially my Special Olympic friends. I'm so happy here. We have our own swimming program, so I might have to go find you guys again. So I just want to say thank you very much, and thanks for having me here today.
20 years of service.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Okay, so if you all have other things you want to do, you're free to leave. Prefer to stay and listen to the rest of our meeting. You're welcome to do that too.
Cooking for the food bank.
All right.
I didn't make any of those, so. Oh, there's enough.
Now you don't want to stay.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great
Thanks,
day.
everyone.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you. You have a great day.
Come for a tour, okay?
Got a smile, small cookie, bring a smile, eh?
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you guys.
Bye, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Sean. We'll see you soon. Yes. Our pleasure.
Oh, much for being here.
Is that the shortest speech you've ever made in your life? What's up with that?
Great, now you can go have coffee.
Go fix the budget.
Jen, watch. He really likes his seat. Watch out.
Yeah, it's comfy, eh?
I feel like
And you can poke it.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
See you, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Was the best part of our meeting over? We can
Yes,
move
what a
on.
happy way to start.
I know.
that was overwhelming.
That was
I know.
What's that, American
So
football?
nice. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Okay. So moving forward, we have no additions to the agenda, I assume.
I have just one minor one. I wanted to talk to the board quickly about emergency funding I was able to get for disclosure protocol for 2024. So I just was going to mention that
So
later on.
we'll put that down to new business. G.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ask for declaration of any pecuniary or financial interest. Disclosure thereof. None. We have a number of in-camera items this morning. So we'll ask for motion to move in camera shortly. And for those who may be watching from home, this will be lengthy. I suspect it'll probably be over an hour in camera. So I need a motion. The Smiths Falls Police Services Board move in camera to discuss items pertaining to intimate financial or personal matters or other matters may be disclosed of such a nature having regard to the circumstances, the desirability of avoiding their disclosure, in the interest of any person affected or in the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principle that proceedings to be open to the public in accordance with Section 44 of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Motion move in camera, moved by Jen, seconded by Chris. All in favor? We'll be in camera shortly. Okay.
Okay. My pen.
we get Chris back.
We get Chris back.
Come on now.
Sounds like a magician, like a magic trick.
Oh, we lost him.
We lost him. How do we get him
Listen,
back?
he probably has to re-sign into the Zoom link.
Let's see what he's done. If he's
He looks like Joey around there.
Yeah.
Zoom says waiting for host to start the meeting.
Oh, so Sean probably has to accept it.
That's Sean, right?
Oh, there's a.
Okay,
We
so
can ask Sean if he can accept McGuire again. Actually, so I have to out of camera.
He doesn't see him.
Jody, you're right. So it was 30 in a week and you get 30 in a week here.
Yeah.
Upper Ottawa Valley, 30 in 1 week, but you get 30 a week here in Smith Falls.
Oh, yeah.
what's that?
Yeah, and that's a whole upper.
OPP reported 30 domestic violence disputes in 1 week in the Upper Ottawa Valley.
How many? 30?
30.
And that's
Jody
all of
gets 30 a
upper
week
Ottawa. We
here.
have 30 a week here in Smith Falls.
What?
Yeah.
And never repeat offenders.
Yeah, the one guy that got out every 10 hours did it for 4 times in a week.
Okay, we're good to go. I think he doesn't see Chris Myers. I don't know.
Texting him there. Zoom says it's waiting for the host to start. Oh, he's gonna try and sign back in. Okay, we're back live.
Yep.
Okay,
I think
just while
so.
he's getting signed in, just to bring everyone up to date who may be watching from home or wherever, we had a number of in-camera discussions. From that, we will add to new business item H, biometric for prisoners, and we moved item I, board honorarium, to open session, which will be number I for the open session under new business. We have no correspondence. Look for motion to approve the minutes from the October 16th meeting. Moved by Jen, seconded by Chris. All in favor? And business arising in previous meeting, chief and toxilizer and ALPR.
So one of the last meetings, the board had approved an ALPR, and the intoxilizer, I had indicated that we were in need of an intoxilizer 9000. I thought that I'd be able to put the intoxilizer 9000 over to 2025 budget. However, training has to be implemented starting in January for our services as well as other services across the province. Again, we're having difficulty with replacement parts, and we don't want to be down an intoxilizer 8000 for impaired driving. So I just wanted to get board approval on having the intoxilizer now. I'll be able to put it through 2024's budget with complex maintenance. It's just over $12,000, and the training is going to begin beginning of January for our breath technicians as well as our breath coordinator. But just to get ahead of it, to make sure that we had it ready to go for our training in January. The ALPR, I'm going to discuss further because I've asked for more ALPRs in the budget for 2025.
Just say what ALPR is, just for anybody who might be wondering.
It's the automatic license plate readers. It's also included the camera that we use at traffic stops, interviewing statements. It's been a very positive tool both for our officers and for our community. It helps with human trafficking, domestic violence, high-risk offenders, as well as compliance and transparency. If there's complaints, we have video in our cruisers. We're able to pull that. Traffic enforcement as well has been very helpful for that. And I've wrote into for a grant as well for that. So even though the ask will be in 2025, I need one now for the new car that we have for 2024, but that is going to be offset by grant. But the board had already approved that. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that that would be going through 2024 just for the one ALPR. However, like I said, when I do get grant approval, it goes back to April of 2024, so it'll be covered
Okay.
Basically an in and out, Joe.
Pardon me, they're just over $20,000.
But it's in and out on the budget line. We just
It
pay
is.
for it up front
Yeah.
and getting it back.
Yes, yes.
So it's really the decision really is the intoxicalizer.
It's more for the
Sure.
intoxilizer.
And that falls under the 2024
2024
budget.
budget.
Yes.
We have the room in there.
Yeah.
What was the intoxilizer worth? Sorry, did I miss that?
Just over $12,000.
Training.
Yeah, 12. Yeah, but to have
Again,
it
is
now,
it an in and out or is it only an out?
it's only an out. Yeah.
Something like a motion to approve the purchase. Rob, second by Jen. All in favor?
Just moving it, right?
Okay. Carried. Thank you. On to new business. A, the IT infrastructure.
IT infrastructure. So from the very beginning, I had noticed a lot of IT infrastructure that we needed to improve within our service. I've done a lot of internal changes. One of them was collaborating with Owen Sound Police Service. So they're looking after our NG 911. And we've had quite a few meetings with the chief with Owen Sound, as well as the IT team, who's come down personally to see our whole server room and infrastructure, and felt it was best suited to have them looking after our whole IT department that we have. There's a lot of changes that are coming with our service with NG 911 and being up to compliance with Optic, which is
NG 911, next generation 911?
yeah, next generation 911. So we're on to year 3. We had grant funding for year 1 and 2. Year 3 grant funding hasn't been approved yet. I don't anticipate any problems with our year 3. I had a meeting with the government officials who are doing the grant for that. But one of the major part of my funding is IT support anyways, that's written into the grant. I had looked at other proposals like services such as Gananoque, Brockville we're using, but the company that they use is very prohibitively expensive for our service. It was well over $100,000 a year. So I'd reached out to Owen Sound to see if they would be a more suitable and cheaper option for us, which they have. I've shared the MOU with the Police Services Board. And I believe that MOU is quite reasonable with the upgraded support that I've already had with them. They've been very helpful to me already without any cost to the service of upgrading what we need to get upgraded. We deal with what's called Optic. It's an Ontario Police technical database that we use, that we share across the province, that has to be up to compliance and standards with the government and with the RCMP policies. And in order to keep us in compliant, this seems to be the best solution to have for our service. And then we have contract assistance to get us up and running with NG 911. Their salary is also tied into NG 911 grant funding, so not coming out of our budget. Although you see it in the budget for 2025, there will be salary recovery when we get the funds for NG 911 year 3.
Okay, questions?
You know, it's been a long and lengthy discussion over IT, so it's nice to see a solution in the future. So I was happy with this.
Technology certainly has come a long way fast, and we have to keep up with it. And we always, especially for police services in Ontario, I believe it was Port Hope that it cost $500,000. They were hacked, and it was a nightmare for them to get out of that. And I want to keep protection for our municipality and our service, and ensuring that we have everything in place to protect us as well.
Well, as we move forward, I think as more technology plays a bigger role in policing, we're probably better enabled to take advantage of that with this arrangement and relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. 12B, cruiser maintenance tenders, Chief.
So at 1 o'clock today will be the deadline for our cruiser maintenance tenders. According to my admin assistant, I think we have about 4 or 5 tenders that have been submitted. And it's our policy with the board to sit down together, open up the tenders, and go from there to see what's best suited for our service. One of the things we look for when it comes to cruiser maintenance is obviously compliance with all the equipment and standardize. It's not aftermarket parts, that kind of thing, but also that the place takes cruisers as a priority. So for example, if we had a major breakdown of a police car, that dealership or mechanic can take priority to the cruisers to get them fixed. Obviously the oil changes, things like that, those things we make appointments for. But if we had a bit of a major breakdown, a transmission, something goes wrong, we want to ensure that the mechanic is able to take the car expeditedly to get it back on the road. So that's going to be this afternoon with a couple of board members, and we'll sit down and go over the tenders and decide from there who's going to be doing the cruiser maintenance for the next 2 years.
Any questions or? And I assume we signed an agreement with them that would also speak to, I guess, just, is there any confidentiality issues? They have no access to technology, obviously, inside.
They have, so everything gets shut down. Everything gets taken out as far as our, equipment, firearms, carbines, all that. They have no access to. The technology piece is shut down, and we'll ensure that when they do sign a contract that they don't access any of the technology or anything with the cruiser. We haven't any problems in the past, but there's quite an extensive forms that they have to fill out, and you'll see when you open the tenders of pricing and ensuring that pricing, that you agree to that pricing and that the pricing doesn't go up, down over the next couple of years. And it's a pretty fulsome contract that they have to do. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, moving forward, item C, budget monitor.
So for the October budget monitor, you'll probably see near the end of this month, the salary line will be going up higher due to staffing hiring that we've done. Part-time wages are high. They've been riding high for a while just to replace one of the workers that is off full-time for maternity leave and illness, as well as covering vacation and time off. So you see the part-time wages increase for that, as well as we've had some training of a new staff over the last few months. Overtime, we're riding very high. We're at 184,000 and the year isn't ending yet. That's been a gradual increase, which is why we addressed staffing at the last board meeting, and which is going to be a helpful part for 2025.
And the budget for that was 120,000, right?
Yeah. So we're 64,000, almost 65,000 over budget for our overtime. Part-time vacation, that's in lieu of when they're a part-time worker, they get a percentage of that. Office supplies were riding high. However, I allocated some of the chairs that we had to purchase into our maintenance line. Complex maintenance, you'll see it high because there was a lot of work that I had to get done on the generator to get it. The generator failed on us actually a couple of months ago, which isn't a good thing when the power goes and the generator fails as well. So there was a lot of funds I had to put into the maintenance for the generator. However, I've written that into NG 911 grant year 3. Again, it'll go back to April of 2024. So all of the work that's been done on upgrading and getting this generator to not fail will go into year 3 NG 911 grant. So that will be recovery cost into our complex maintenance budget. Everything else, the clothing, we're hitting the line, training, all this will be part of the grant applications that I've written for. So you've got the victim support grant that I just wrote for. It's $200,000 grant, and I maxed it out. That's going to help a lot of our community partners, such as the sexual assault, domestic violence team, victim advocate. Victim services didn't want to participate in this grant, and Big Brothers to support some youth, as well as our training and offsetting some of a lot of our budget for training and travel that we do for our courses, because there's a lot of courses that our officers are going to have to do under this new act. And I want to ensure that our officers are trained in domestic violence investigations, sexual assault investigations. That is going to be offset in our training budget as well. So hopefully I'll hear about that in the next couple of months. But that is the budget monitor for 2024.
Questions?
I'm going to do a presentation.
Okay, now we move over to 2025 budget. I guess the
It's
big
the
elephant in the room.
presentation of the vision for 2025. So can I hear?
Presentation here.
Yeah, I'm going to do a presentation first to kind of have the public overview. It says public? Yeah. And just to get an idea of our vision. So the deputy and I have done a full vision of the service and what we like to see for 2025. We presented this to the board last meeting. And certainly there's been issues with staffing and lack of staffing within this municipality and the frontline police part of the service. So data is not always accurate in 2021 census, but assuming the variable is consistent in 2024, we're estimating the population growth of being almost 11,000 and still growing. And with growth always comes issues in policing as well. I can't see the top part of it. That's okay. I can. So our budget line has always stayed very stable through the years, and COVID kind of helped that as well, because there wasn't as many calls and the complexity of calls weren't as bad as they are today. This is nothing new across the province. Police services are seeing the strain that we're having on the complexity of calls, the number of calls that we're having, and not having enough staff to deal with these calls. And this is what we're seeing. So across the board, for the last 5 years, we've always been stable with our staffing count overall, but the population continues to grow, and we're continuing to see issues within our municipality, certainly drug enforcement, traffic, domestic violence are higher than they've ever been. And just mental health calls and a number of calls for service. When you're dealing with almost 800 calls a month, a lot of them are very complex. We also have 2 major cases, one major missing person case that we deal with daily with one of our crime guys out of 2 who's the file coordinator for this. So it's an extensive amount of work as well as everything that goes on in our community. It's cut off a little bit.
I know.
We did a strat plan with the board, and it's a board strategic plan, but we did a survey, and of the survey of the community, 54% of them polled didn't feel safe, and 100% of our members were feeling burnt out of what the lack of staffing that we had versus the calls for service that we were given. And that's why when you see our overtime going up almost 200,000, there's officers that have to work that overtime. And many times it's come down to our staff sergeant, and then the next in line is me to work the front line. So 70% of our community that were polled felt that crime has increased. Our service is one of the higher crime severity index rate, and in order to continue to lower our criminal index rate, proactive policing is most effective to combat crime, like working with schools, crime prevention, and compliance checks on our high-risk offenders. So some of the increase has been domestics. And if you see in our IPV-related cases so far, we are at 226 cases of intimate partner-related calls for service for the year, up from 212 the entire year last year. And we're only in November. And these were stats now. They've been 2 weeks old when I put this together. So we probably have even more than that. And so we're definitely higher than last year and all the years prior to. And domestics is something that I've always taken very serious in our in our municipality, even if it's just an argument. As far as when we say just an argument, if police are called, there's a reason. And if police are called to an argument, usually there's a history. So it takes officers time to ensure that they've done all the background that they should be doing, to ensure that if it is just an argument, what's going on and how we can support the couple so that we work on prevention going forward. We also have a sergeant that oversees all the domestic cases. So if that sergeant's pulled into a role of frontline, then he's not able to review the cases as much as I want them to review. This is one of the major parts of homicide prevention and ensuring that we do everything we can in every case that we are given. And this is to do with criminal harassment, bail violations that we see for domestic violence, probation breaches, as well as new calls for service. The next graph has to do with sexual assault in cases. These again are becoming more complex as we see youth cases as well as adults. These are more relationship sexual assaults, not necessarily stranger ones. Calls for service overall, we're staying relatively steady. However, it doesn't reflect the complexities of the calls, as I said. Doing a domestic investigation that before would take maybe an hour takes anywhere from 3 to 4 hours in length, and rightfully so. We wanted to ensure that we're following all of our policies and procedures. I'm pretty tight about how we deal with our domestics. We followed all the inquest recommendations for police to ensure that there isn't another homicide in our community. And so the Community Safety and Policing Act also dictates training for officers who are investigating domestics and sexual assaults, IDENT, and many other specialized courses for adequacy. So in order to comply with the new act, we need to ensure our officers are trained. And if I can't pull them off the road to take them for training, then everything starts to become inadequate. Our Health IM comparators, we're staying relatively steady, although I found recently our wait times have increased, and that of course is no fault of anyone's. We all know what the healthcare system is like, but when an officer is sitting in the hospital with a person in crisis, they're not going to take precedent over a more pressing emergency that's going on. So sometimes our officers are sitting there for 7-8 hours. We do try and offset this with our special constable, but that not always is the case. That can happen. So we're hoping to still hear about our MCERT grant. We've been told that that's coming soon, but again, that puts Lanark County Mental Health in a bit of a wait period as well, because they wait for grant funding in order for them to hire. So it's just a vicious cycle. And just to provide the public of a Community Safety and Policing Act going forward policing model, this is going to be displayed on our website as well. It's crime prevention, law enforcement, maintaining public peace, emergency response, assistance to victims of crime, and any other prescribed police functions. So we've always had a proactive police model, and I've been proud of that. But the last 2 years, especially this last year, we've become more reactionary, responding to crimes rather than being on the front line preventing. So when officers are going from call to call to call, then traffic initiatives, bail reform enforcement, all this takes a back seat. We can't be there. And traffic is probably one of the most complaints that we will receive from our community, and rightfully so. People running stop signs, people running lights, people speeding. But additional staffing will take the pressure off the front line a bit, and ensuring that we are adequate with the new Community Safety and Policing Act. We work with our MCERT team. We can deal with our community service. Our community service officer can do what he's supposed to be doing, and working with our community. So part of our action plan that we gave to the board was increasing our frontline officers from 2025 to have like kind of a 30 officer complement altogether. This was approved by the board. It's going to approve all the needs of our community, including our drug enforcement, working collaboratively with CISO, intelligence gathering, community engagement, IPV, getting them trained, sexual assault. I have a lot of new officers, so I want to ensure that they get training, assisting MCERT team as well. So I've taken away a part-time clerk for 2025. We're going to use our part-time staff. That's not going to be part of the 2025 budget. That has been removed. The special constable that we were approved for 2 part-time, it is in the budget for 2. However, that gets offset by the court security grant that we get. So you have to budget for it. But the previous chief did really well in getting funds for the special constable last year in the court security grant. And we have more hours to prove that we do need a special constable, especially for prisoner transport, care and control of prisoners. So that'll be something obviously that I'll be applying for as well for 2025. And just having a collaborative approach and looking at other ways that we could work together. You know, I've reached out obviously with Owen Sound, looking at the IT support, reaching out to Brockville, Gananoque. A lot of us work together. We do our training together to save money for funding as well. The 3 work well together. So we're pooling our resources like for this new act to see how can we save within our own municipalities, but still provide the adequate policing that we all are passionate about, and keeping our municipal service. That's really obviously important to me. And I know it's important to the community, because if you didn't have your own police service, I think that you would see a lot of failure in the frontline response part. And just working with our, you know, this whole room was full with community partners that we work so closely with, and they know we do. And it's not just words that I say, it's actions that we do. We do work very closely with our youth. We feel that our youth is our future. And if we just deal with our youth in a negative way, as far as, you know, COVID wasn't good to anybody, and it certainly wasn't good to our youth that were isolated, that, you know, had their babysitting a lot on their iPads or phones or whatever. They haven't had a lot of social interactions. Like COVID, you know, ruined it for a lot of our young people, and you're seeing that effect now with some crimes and mischiefs and stuff. So we have to keep that connection going. And having more officers means decrease in criminal and organized crime. We don't want that in our community, and we like to stay on top of what we're seeing. And certainly it doesn't take much to see what's going around. Gun violence, Brockville has had a lot of gun violence themselves, and we're just next door to Brockville. We definitely have gun issues, but we're not seeing the violence that we're seeing in the cities, but that doesn't mean that's not coming to Smith Falls. So I want to get ahead of what we're seeing in other communities as well. Our community safety and policing grant offsets officer salary a good portion. $70,000 of our community service officer is offsetted by the community safety and policing grant. I've been told that is going to continue. It's going to look different, but I think it's going to be beneficial for police based on what the Solicitor General has told the chair and I, that you're going to see the benefit of salary recovery for officers. And that's something that we've tried to push. Even with MCERT grant, we'd like to have salary recovery because officers do work with our MCERT team. That hasn't happened yet, but at least in this community safety and policing grant that's set to expire in April of 2025, for that to come back, that's going to be some salary recovery for us. So looking forward to seeing what that's going to look like. So training, effective policing, that's all very important components to me. And then I just did a comparison for agencies, municipal. So because our line has been held for so long and didn't address the salary line as far as staffing, you're going to see a very large increase for Smith Falls Police versus other municipalities. However, when I did a dive into other municipalities, they always had increases over the years to bump up their staffing levels, where ours has stayed status quo. What happened then is we've had, that's caused a major impact. We only have 10 officers working the front line. That is low for Smith Falls. We have 2 recruits that are coming. They'll be ready to go for 2025. We have Constable Simmons that you just met. But what's happening is our staff sergeant has been working the road, the sergeants who, it's important for me to have sergeants overseeing what our officers are doing and ensuring that our officers are in compliance with what they're doing on the front line, that they're reviewing video, that they're reviewing statements, that they're reviewing the reports. That's very important. That's why I have sergeants. But what's happening is the sergeants are getting pulled on a platoon to work with these officers, so not being able to oversee the stuff I need them to do. The staff has been working, the deputy chief's been backing up officers on calls, and then it gets to one level of myself that I've been very close to being called in. Certainly have offered myself that if needed, but definitely not something that I obviously have time to do, but will do in a heartbeat. As you probably know, it's been well publicized, OPP costing increases to municipalities for 2025. So to explain this into our perspective, contract negotiations just finished between the board and the association. The association was in 97% of an OPP wage. OPP just had their increases. There's been a salary freeze across the province for police services. So you will see the other municipalities catch up because some of their contracts aren't done till the end of this year. You will see what's happened here. Because our officers were tied into the OPP's salary, there was increases to our officers' salaries from 2023, which we've paid out. 2024, we've paid out. There's still 1.5% increase in our salary line that we did not budget for. There was a 3% increase, but the chief wouldn't have known that this was going to be an extra 1.5%. And then in 2025, I had to budget an extra 2.5% increase of OPP salary. So you'll see across the province, they're seeing massive increases, and this has to do with salary as well as staffing. OPP are in the same boat as all of us across the province, that we need more staffing to keep up with the calls that we're seeing, and OPP is no different. So that's why you're seeing the large increases. So that comes down to our budget, and with the approval of the officers that the board has already approved for 2025. So we've got, we've changed our platoon structure, which is going to really help. We've changed some hours internally. We've done some shifting internally. We're using our part-time staff to help with data downloading of our, that's been a big piece. So the Crown Attorneys across the province, MAG, it's called, they push this disclosure protocol on all the police services. So in 2024, it was a timeline that you had to disclose all of your stuff. So before, we used to disclose, say, cell block video or cruiser video only when our Crown Attorney would request it. So say, for example, someone pled to an offense. We didn't need to disclose everything. They've pled guilty. Now they want everything disclosed within a time frame of 40 days, which is a lot of work for someone to do. So we've upgraded, not by purchasing anything because we have an old system in the cell block, but one of the IT guys was able to just do a quick fix to upgrade our system to make it easier to download, but you still need staff to do it. So this wasn't budgeted for 2024. I heard about an emergency funding that I could apply for this protocol disclosure, and I just found out that we're getting over $76,000 back. And that's going to go right back into our salary line for 2024. Unfortunately, it's not going to help us in 2025, but I think with the staffing that we've got, the part-time staffing, because we've got full-time communicator coming back, the part-timers then, we could use them for the data download. So we're not hiring clerk for that, whereas other services, they have staff just to do download. Obviously with our budget, trying to be very mindful of the fact that our salaries have gone up and the staffing has gone up, which is drove our budget high. And so I've taken away and cut back the part-time support and not including that in the budget. So overall, we're looking at a 21% increase to our budget line. So we're at about $6,645,525 so far. And that is with cutting everything I possibly could cut back on. The only thing I'm not quite sure of yet is the repair piece that I budgeted the same as what the chief budgeted last year was $25,000. But I don't know what the tenders are gonna show us and what it's gonna look like for equipment repairs. So that's the only thing that once I have those tenders and once the board decides on who to go with, we'll have a more fulsome idea. But everything else has kind of, I've held the line on that I could. Didn't increase except for clothing and equipment. I obviously have to. There's standards that we go by under the new act that we need for equipment. And then it's just the staffing that the board approved that was part of our salaries. But like I said, the Community Safety and Policing Act is going to come, or sorry, the Community Safety Policing Grant is going to come, local and provincial, in 2025. That'll be salary recovery. We're losing an experienced member in February to another police service. His salary has been taken out, and the salaries in that we have pushing through is going to really help our front line. I think already it's changed the dynamic of our internal staff, just their wellness. I didn't want, I've already got 6 off on long-term or short-term. I don't want anybody else going off. I want them to be able to take their vacation. I don't want to cancel vacation like we have been doing. I want them to spend time with their families. I don't want them working overtime to the point that they're not seeing their own kids and families. So we had to do something. We were so short on the front line that I had to ensure that we are the best police service in this in Lanark County, and I want to keep it that way. And I know having your own municipal police service is very costly, but as you can see across the province and with the increases that you're seeing with OPP municipalities, it's a reality of policing. It's not a cheap service to have, and certainly not a moneymaker. But we do all we can to keep our community safe, and I think that we do a really good job of that from our communication staff, who support our officers and make sure that they stay out on the road by doing all this data downloading, by doing all this inputting, as well as answering calls for service, as well as dispatching. Because in other services, they hire different people. We have the most multitasking people from the ground up that I've ever seen in any municipality, how many different jobs that everybody does to support this municipality is pretty amazing in a way. So
Okay.
That is that.
Thank you.
Ouch.
Great presentation, and I think a lot of context around why this is a significant increase. Also, I think some clarity related to the reality that the cost of policing is up across the province. And I know it was a few weeks ago I heard from colleagues in the area about their sticker shock for the OPP contracts in areas where, like, their municipality really has no choice. This is where it's going to be for each year, and they have to agree to that. As a municipal service, we have a little bit more autonomy over the budget, but we also make the decisions on the adequacy and effectiveness of our police service and what we believe is appropriate for our community. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for questions and comments. Rob?
Joe, being the first year with the new Community Safety and Policing Act, we all understand the salaries and we understand the expense of what we have here, but how much of this would you attribute to the change in that direction with the Community Safety and Policing? Like, we look at our IT lines gone.
Yeah.
Major up.
Yep.
So would you say that, and I know we've talked at length about this, but we're going in the direction that they want us to go in, and we're staying compliant with everything, and we're sort of getting ahead of what perhaps other municipalities. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it actually is. So I worked a lot with South Simcoe Deputy Chief as well, like when we were going over the act, and we were talking, and they need to put about over $150,000 into equipment, where we, and I get South Simcoe is a lot larger than Smith Falls, but for example, we've been ahead of that. We've put carbines in every vehicle. We are ordering, and that's in our budget anyways, is ordering 2 more guns just to have. So for your active attacker was one thing, for example, under the Act, we had to have a plan in place for an active attacker, and ensuring that you had extra ceramic plates for your equipment, and ensuring you had breaching tools in all your cruisers. So services like that have to put that in all their cruisers. So absolutely, whereas we've been ahead and been buying that stuff, and we have guns. We've only had to buy 2 extra guns. We have to, and we take the guns from officers that aren't working anymore, give it to the front line. My gun, for example, there's a smaller one for a deputy chief. I've had the same gun that I've had for years when we transitioned, so I will give mine to a frontline staff. So there's a lot of kind of borrowing, but absolutely, the IT portion, and I meant to explain that, in NG 911, I have a lot of money allocated for grant support on project management, overseeing NG 911. It's going to be a big project, and the funding that you see in IT support, it's almost $197,000, but $100,000 of that is going to NG 911 grant. So that'll be put back into the budget. So it's not all coming out for us. It's just before you get the grant, you've got to budget for things, and then the grants pay back what your plan is. But it's a big expense having the extra staffing. You need all your staff trained. So in order to train your staff, you have to have ones working the roads so the others can go away to get training. It takes a week, for the domestic violence training, for example. We've got to fit them into courses and different parts of the year. I've used our civilian staff for power case, so that is all our major cases. So again, that was falling behind years ago. We've now upgraded to a new system, and it's all compliancy based, that we have to ensure that all our major cases are added to power case, sexual assaults. VICLAS, for example, you have to make sure that any of your sexual assaults are added to VICLAS. It's a system so that if someone runs a person in another area, it's flagged through VICLAS. That's how, the Paul Bernardo days that would help police services across Ontario. So absolutely, there's a reasoning for this act, and the reasoning that you're seeing increases across the province has everything to do with this new act and compliant with it.
And is that in terms of boots on the ground? So
Boots on the ground,
we've talked to different officers, but if I'm not mistaken, the OPP in the next year to 2 are expected to hire.
They're looking at about 600 at least a year. And what happens is, and salaries always come up with police or with town and services, but if you don't stay close to the OPP salary, we do the same job. In fact, a lot of our officers would do more because they would offset to crime and different areas that they have. But our officers do so much more. They do the domestics, they follow through with the sexual assaults, and they're trained to do so. And I want to ensure that our new staff are the same, so that you always have trained people in every platoon, and that you don't have different staff doing different things, because you want all your staff to do it. But they are looking at over 600 hires a year at least. And you have to be competitive with bigger services. Everyone's hiring. Retention is going down. You're not keeping the officers that we used to, like the 30-year officers like myself. That's becoming a thing of the past. People start policing for a while and then they think, oh, geez, this is not what I wanted, or I didn't expect it to be like this. And recruitment. Recruitment is low with smaller services, just from the bigger services pulling, if they're hiring in this area 600, it's going to pull from the smaller services. So the ones we're getting, though, are the ones that want to settle in this area. Like Constable Simmons, for example, was one that kind of, has actually small world, but
I mean, his father-in-law Dale was a paramedic for years here. His daughter I played soccer with when way back. So their family's settled. So now he settled. So that's what you draw is people that want to settle in this community and not so much jumping like they used to do. So we're trying to keep our staff, and keeping your staff levels up will keep our staff going. And when you have seasoned, officers saying that they're burning out, they're not seeing their family, then you know that you've got a problem. Like you want to address it immediately. And I'm thankful for the board for seeing that, for seeing what we deal with and what we need.
Okay. Additional questions, comments?
I think my biggest question when looking at the budget when it was sent out to us was about the part-time increase. So I think you explained that really well in the presentation. No one wants for an increase in budget. It's never, what anyone seeks out to do. But when, like Rob was saying, when you kind of look at the demands of the act and the, increases province-wide, it's not something that can be helped if we want to help our community and ensure. And speaking to so many, wonderful officers that have come up to all of us out on the street on their own time to say how many hundreds of hours that they're working overtime to, compensate and to ensure that, we have a presence in the community. They need to see their families. It's not fair to put the burden on them, but it's never something that we all seek out to do is to continue to increase. But like you said, when you look at the history of towing the line for so long, it's bound to catch up with us as our community grows, right?
Yeah, and just sort of touch on that part-time wage. I don't know if I did explain properly that the 2 part-time specials are in that part-time wage. That salary recovery gets put back into that part-time wage line. And that part-time wage line I did drop because I don't anticipate seeing a lot of extra hours for part-time. We've got trained staff now, so there's not extra hours for training. But we definitely will utilize our part-time staff for the data downloading that we're seeing an increase on.
In the when we look at kind of the overtime line, obviously the hope is that it comes down because we're increasing our hires. But when looking at years in the past, do we anticipate it being as high as we've budgeted if the world is a great place and with our new hires having it?
So to keep the budget as low as I possibly could for 2025, I dropped the overtime line in hopes that because we have extra staffing that we're not going to see an increase in that.
Okay, Chris McGuire,
Chris, yeah, let Chris go ahead.
Oh, we can't hear you, Chris.
Can't hear you.
Are you muted?
No, I'm not muted.
Oh, you're okay now. Yeah,
okay,
you're good
now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for the presentation. I think it really illustrates the challenges facing the police service and the community when it comes to the costs and expenses in the Community Safety Policing Act. At the same time, I really, this is going to be a huge challenge for the town to take on this year for funding, and I think it's going to result in a big increase for taxpayers for the tax rate for 2025. Traditionally, Smith Falls has been one of the most expensive police services in Ontario, and I think as a board we really need to look at post Community Safety Policing Act as the expenses have increased, really making sure that what we're paying per capita is in line with other communities, and making sure that those expenses are justified with other communities. I think it's hopeful that, maybe there'll be some cost recovery from the province, but I'm also not holding my breath on that because when we look at other funding outlets for the province to the municipality, the amounts have actually decreased in 2025. So even if there was an increase for police cost recovery, there still might be a net reduction in what the province is supplying the municipality with. And I think this is something that I'm going to be really interested to see what the community has to say because, significant increase in the cost of policing is going to result in a significant increase in the taxes. And everybody's feeling the stress right now of trying to pay the bills where wages are stable and prices keep going up and up. So it's disappointing that it's as high as it is. I understand why it is high as it is, but I think it's time for the community to have a a conversation on policing and get more understanding out of the money they're spending and the service they get from the money they spend. So I appreciate the presentation today and the opportunity to participate virtually.
Thanks, Chris. The other Chris?
I agree with Councillor McGuire that we're going to have to take a look at other municipalities our size and say, what do they pay? I'm going to use our part as an example. They're OPP policed. I don't want to use them, but they're exactly almost 11,000, 10, 11,000, exactly the way we are. I don't know if we should, as a board, look into comparable municipalities. Somebody has to do some research and see what are other municipalities our size paying. And obviously, staffing is our wages are our biggest thing, and that's do we have? And we're short-staffed, and so we're only going to go up. There's no question about it. So I think we should. Before I would approve this, I'd like to see other municipalities for sure. And again, it's going to be a big increase. Our firm pays quite a few taxes here in town, and I don't look forward to paying more. So nor does anybody. So
okay, thank you. I'll weigh in and. I'll say that the chief went through this with me earlier in the week, and we talked about things through line by line, and she made a few amendments, which brought down the overall increase. It may have been higher, and I appreciate that. And I guess we have to look at the realities that we face, and as much as we would prefer to say, well, we don't want anything more than a 10% increase. Well, that means we're probably not providing adequate and effective policing to our community. And when you look at the overall increase over the last 10 years, and I know it wasn't part of the slide presentation, but in 2015, the police budget was $4.6 million on 12.6 million, almost 12.7 million of tax revenue for the town. So the police budget represented 37% of the municipal taxes. In 2024, police budget had risen to just under 5.5 million, but tax revenue for the town had risen to 19.376 million. So policing actually decreased to about 28% of our overall tax revenue for the town. And we look at the policing budget proposed for 2025, it's going to become back up to about 33% of our tax revenue. So still less than where we were in 2015 and for a few years thereafter. And just doing the quick math on that, if we take the budget in 2015 and the budget in proposed budget for 2025, works out to a 3.3% average annual increase. And even though inflation was lower for part of that period, it was significantly higher for part of that period. Overall, if we look at, if we were sitting here 10 years ago and we said, if we can keep our policing budget at about 3% increase every year, we would probably be satisfied with that. And 10 years ago, we were in a different world. 10 years ago, we had really no growth. We were still coming off a decline in tax revenue, a decline in population. And the challenges in our community were probably as evident then as they are today. But the reality is, from a numbers standpoint, I think the work of the service and the board over a number of years has been to try to keep costs in line as much as possible. But we are a growing community. And when we look at those around us who have seen increases, which is everybody, we also understand that as the chief mentioned in her presentation, the wages in our service are directly tied to OPP wages. So that contract settled, and that represents the biggest part of our increase. And then decision the board has made for a number of reasons to ensure we have adequate frontline personnel out there every moment of every day, to ensure that we're not calling people in on their days off or on their vacation, to ensure that if an officer needs a day or two off, they have that opportunity to do so without being called in, maybe when they're not feeling their best, maybe they've had a couple of traumatic calls. To ensure the health and wellness of our service is something we have to invest in personnel. And we also want to be an employer of choice. I mean, we also make sure that we have the best personnel today and going forward, that we can keep the service, keep the personnel we have today and add the best as we move forward. And that's one reason why we bumped up the wages a little bit to 98% of the OPP wage instead of 97%. It's why we invested in additional mental health services for our personnel. So it is a busy community. We know that significant calls for service, somewhere around 8,000 a year. And the decision we have as a board to make is, do we support the decision we made earlier to provide the personnel that we agree is necessary, or do we find some ways of cutting? And at this stage, having gone through the budget line by line, I don't believe there is really room to cut without reducing personnel. I know the chief has worked extremely hard on her first budget to bring this forward, and will continue to see grant opportunities. And the fact that it's when I look back and realize that the growth in costing is only 3.3% a year for the last 11 years, and that it still represents a smaller proportion of the municipal tax levy today than what it did going back a decade. I'll support the budget. Of course, we do look at for the board to support it today, to at least formalize it and bring it to council, which will be coming forward within a couple of weeks. And but that said, if the board is not comfortable with what we have today, we can't approve this today. We can put forward a proposed budget with final approval coming. Maybe we'd have to have a meeting in December to do that. So it's a matter of where the sentiment is with the board right now. I appreciate your comments and concerns. I think, but to my feeling, I think we've done all we can for 2025. But I think in 2025, perhaps we can look carefully at others and see how much our cost relates on a per capita basis or household basis. The alternative always, it's not a board decision, it's a council decision, of course, is how we police our community. But we also recognize that if we compare our response times, the dedicated personnel we have in our community every moment of every day, and we contrast that with the level of service the OPP is able to provide, lower cost, but on a Lanark County detachment model, as I understand it, there are times there would be no police service in the urban communities in Lanark County. If there's whatever officers are on, if they're called somewhere and they're called away, that's the model they have. That's the model they've chosen, and there is some impact to that. The benefit we have of a municipal service is that we know we have dedicated personnel in our community every moment of every day. Response times are quicker. They know the people, and the end result is far more positive. So at this stage, this is where we're at, and we have a decision to whether we approve the budget or we send it back for further revisions.
Your information back from 2015, I think, puts in light the ability that we've had over the number of years here to really monitor our budget. And I get that this is a major increase from where we were last year to this year, but we've also changed our mindset a little bit on the importance of our officers, not only their mental health, but the mental health and safety of our community. And I think that's why we agreed to get proactive in getting the number of officers that we see we needed. And that's a major increase in this. The OPP increase to their wages was really out of our control. And I would say that in looking at the budget from, as we do every week, and then and even more so than that, that was more than we anticipated as well. So that threw our budgetary for salaries out of control. The other part of this budget, if you look at the overall, is say take 10% is the stuff that we're trying to cut and monitor and really take advantage of every day. There's lines in there that are going to benefit from more officers, and the health of our service is going to be there. I'm actually intrigued with your information back to 2015, that over the course of 9-10 years, we've stayed to the taxation index. We've stayed at sort of a sustained level, or an average level of a pretty fair increase. And I see the concerns. Mm-hmm. I certainly, I think I'd have no issues for everyone to take some time to really digest this. And if we have to come back in December, at least to vote on this, it's certainly something I would be in favor of. Yeah.
Well, we're in camera. I looked up Old Sound. That's who we just did a memorandum of understanding with. And so they have 21,000 people. Their police budget is $7.2 million in 2024. Their overall operating budget for the town, city, I don't know, 21,000 of 21,000, that'd be a city, I don't know, doesn't matter, but is 34 million. So they're at 21% of their budget is for policing, and we were at 28, so we're 7% higher. Is I haven't seen what they're doing for 2025 yet, so that's that's the interesting part. Are they going to be 25% as opposed to 33% like we're heading towards?
I think so, because of salary too. Like there's a lot of contracts in negotiation now that'll be settled in 2025, and I can assure you that it'll be in par with OPP salary, for example. That's where the direction that my understanding is going to go. But
per capita, when you look at it, they've got last year's budget was 7.2.
Yeah.
Will they go to 8 this year? And for 22,000, for double the population, they are,
I think what's happened is, sorry to interrupt, Chris.
Oh, no issue.
That every year the line was held, right, with Smith Falls, but other police services across the province were 8, 9, they kept going. And so you didn't see what's happened here because of our staffing issue. And that's all that this is. The line was held, staff, there was other priorities to look after with the service. And then now we've seen a problem with the staffing and keeping the staffing. So you're not going to see this obviously every year, but because it was held for so long, whereas other police services had like 8, 7, 9, 10% increases over those years, we haven't. And so this is almost like a catch up or a pressure cooker, like you could say, that we're just trying to stay ahead of it.
Added 3% in 2023 and 3% in 2022 because we knew that we were going to have to pay.
For salaries.
I think we've already did that. So this whatever increase, what did we say our increase is going to be?
Just over 21.
What's that?
Just over 21%.
21%, yeah, increase, yes, for sure. So, but we've already added 3% last year and 3% the year before. So we're at 27% now.
Yeah, it's the extra staffing that the board approved. That's where we saw the increase. And then there was an increase to the clothing budget to equip that we have to equip the officers with. But everything else as far as equipment that was required for the new act, that's been looked after, and the carbines were put into 2024's budget. And then there's budget for firearms and training, which we haven't, we kept the same budget line. So everything else is pretty well the same budget line.
When does council need our approval of the budget, I guess?
Well, we won't approve the final budget until early February.
Yeah.
But we need something obviously to work with.
But before, when did we get this? Was it yesterday? I don't even know.
The final one, I had been waiting on the town because of the salary numbers. It took a while for them to get it to me. So the presentation, I think, is December 9th to council, the overall presentation. So that's one meeting that I'm aware of.
So could I suggest that we wait till December 18th or whatever I'd like to certainly take a good look at the numbers. I'm sure Jody has done as best as she could to keep the budget in line. There's no question about that. So,
well, we could simply support this as a draft budget to the town.
I don't see us having any major changes. It's just not possible.
And we should probably plan to meet in December to provide final approval should anything change in the meantime. And just going back to Owen Sound, it's the one thing they have as well is, especially with all the changes, is revenue generating. So I don't have any police services have an agreement with them, but obviously there's some economies of scale, and they're probably doing that with a positive cash flow. So that may offset a lot of their costs as well. But to your point, I think every municipality is unique. Every service is a little bit different. And really, and as Rob indicated, we're discussing mostly the 10% because roughly 9% of this is going to be personnel. And the only thing we could change probably that would reduce next year's cost anyway would be if we decided to step back and not proceed with the hires that we had previously approved, or to defer until later in the year. But we also recognize that that could impact frontline services. It may lead to an increase in our overtime budget. That may lead to potentially some officers having greater difficulty and perhaps off on leave. So there's an impact for every decision. So at this stage, though, I guess if we're you want to go ahead, Jen.
No, finish what you're saying.
At this stage, if we want to take a pause on this and to review it a little bit deeper, and then we can plan to come back in December. We haven't scheduled it yet. Perhaps we could do it before, maybe the first week of December, before we actually have the first council budget meeting.
Yeah, before the 9th.
Okay, Jen?
All I was going to highlight is that, I always think it's a good idea to have a pulse on what other municipalities are paying or whatnot, but I've always advocated for the fact that our community is its own unique place, and like we were discussing before we came back into session, that calls for service from an OPP standard to ours, we're almost triple the amount of what they're dealing with. And when you talk to other municipalities that have went in a different direction, you talk to their community and they're not happy because they're not seeing the policing. So I think it is a vision that we have for our town and our safety and everything like that. So, I like the idea of looking at Owen Sound or something like that, because it is a comparator having a small service. But I just want to, if we were ever going to do that, I just want it to be, a true comparator and not just numbers.
I'm not suggesting that we're looking at a police costing at all. I'm suggesting that we might have to be creative and figure out ways to get revenue. And I'm not trying to read anything into that. It's just we have to be competitive. There's no question about it.
That's one thing, Chris, when we talked about, go back to even the hires that we've made from administration at the top down to the new hires. One thing that we've been intrigued by is the conversations we've had from the administration of now that they're getting their feet planted, albeit they're both into very new positions here. And I know even with the deputy and extensive conversations with him, now bringing some of that OPP mindset, if you will, into opportunities for us to create revenue, not just to stay status quo and just keep running the streets. What are ways that we can do? And I think that's, maybe I'm speaking more on personal view than on behalf of the board. I think that's one thing that we were intrigued by, is we've got a bit of OPP flavor that have now come into our force. To back you up on what you're saying is that we need to figure out ways now as a board, through cooperation with the administration, of finding out ways not only to save, but to generate. Be it fingerprints, be it whatever. There's got to be, if Owen Sound can do it, there's opportunities, I think, in this area to be cooperative and maybe creative in how we create money. Obviously, it's something that it's a challenge we need to attack.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris making mention of that is a wonderful thing to highlight. I think it is very proactive, and by putting less pressure on staffing, we are able to breathe a little bit and have the ability then for them to be proactive in that sense, right? So I think it's great to look at it as a whole, for sure.
Please be clear, I am not suggesting we cut any of the suggestions or any of the approvals that we new hires. I'm dead against
I don't think anyone's taking
no question about that. So
No, I think it's
why is a good question, right?
Be good,
Why is a great
Why is a great question?
Okay, so with that understanding, we are really running late and much more business. So I think we've reached consensus. We will plan to meet perhaps that first week of December, just to give everyone a chance to digest this a little bit further. We certainly agree to.
It could certainly be a placeholder.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so I guess look for rule to forward this to the town as a draft. Draft budget moved by Jen, second by Chris. All in favor? Okay, so we know this is a draft. Then we'll move forward to the town. Okay, the next piece is just, I'll be quick, but the IOP correspondence, and essentially the IOP is doing greater analytics.
What's IOP? Just
Inspector of Policing.
Good.
So there is a data collection and innovation center within that we will be providing more information. Well, they do pilot projects with some municipalities, but some police services. And it's now we all have to. So I attended a webinar within the last couple of weeks, but there's going to be questions coming forward that we need to complete in December. And it's a fair amount of work, but it talks about board member composition, existence and review of policies, board budgets and resourcing, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. So the form, I received the form this week, and I'll work with the service with administration and to get that looked after. But over the long term, again, it's just providing the problems with more analytics, which also will help us. Yeah, so that'll come back later, probably for more discussion, but just wanted to highlight that today. But I'll leave it at that, since we have a lot more to cover today in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And so, Chief, fingerprint fees.
So going back to looking at revenue, one thing that I've already started to research and look into is taking over fingerprint fees. So Triton is a company that looks after the fingerprints online and the payment, and we get some recovery from it. However, there's services like Brockville, I think Gananoque, take that over. Now it is quite an undertaking to do, but it certainly is an option to do that. Obviously with the budget and everything, I haven't fully looked into it to see what that's going to look like in our service, or if I would even have staffing, or if the staffing could be implemented to taking that over. But that is quite a revenue generating thing for a smaller municipality, is taking over fingerprinting fees. And one thing I wanted to look at with the board and for next meeting, but just to put it in your mind, is raising our fees for doing fingerprints. We do a lot of employment fingerprints, and we're the lower end of fees that we give versus the time and the person to do the fingerprinting. So that's something that we could look at the beginning of 2025. Let's get through the budget piece first, but absolutely, I've already done some research on looking at that as a revenue source and doing it ourselves. So I'll have more information for that in January's meeting.
Okay. Questions? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, operational report.
Okay. So Deputy Chief is already on vacation. I'm just going to give him the gears. But he did do his report. So for the month of October.
Sorry, my mistake.
Oh,
we still have new business. G.
Oh, G. Is that the biometrics?
That's emergency funding.
Oh, yeah. So that's right. Well, I have some good news. So I had found out about some funding through a colleague in Kingston. I've been speaking before of this emergency or this disclosure protocol that MAG has implemented down to services, and for smaller services, it's been a real hardship on officers and our staff that weren't prepared to do this data download that I was speaking of earlier with cell block video and cruisers. So there was some cost recovery that I was able to apply for, and I used salary of a sergeant and used salary of a communications supervisor that was looking after a lot of the data download in 2024, and then for the entire year calculated how many hours that they spent doing this. And I just received notice from the SolGen that we're receiving $76,393.96. And that fund will go back into our 2024 salary recovery line. So I should be hearing about that shortly, but I just got notification that I was successful, and that's what we're getting back. So
that'll pay for our overtime.
Some good news.
Great news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
And then H, biometrics for prisoners.
So I proposed to the board, one of the board's responsibilities is prisoner care and control, as well as mine, ensuring that our prisoners that we do have in our care are looked after. One of the things I looked at, in lieu of having personnel in the cells all the time and having dispatch watching them on camera, is not that adequate to have when we're responding to calls for service. One of the companies that's been approved across the province and places like Cornwall Police, Sarnia, they're going with this company, is biometrics. And what it is that it it measures somebody's heart rate and breathing rate, and it's just a detection device that's put in each of the cells. So we have 5 cells. We have 2 for youth, but we don't use a lot for youth. They get usually released or deferred to RNJ. And the females would use that cell. And then we have 3 cells for men. And the cells are pretty constant that we have during the week. And it's just to ensure their safety. I know myself personally, I've had to administer naloxone myself in cells, and I know our officers have had to do the same. Now with fentanyl out there and increase of drug use, you don't necessarily see if a person is lying on the bench, if they're in distress or not. If they stop breathing, especially with fentanyl, you won't notice until it's too late. So we just want to get ahead of prevention and ensuring the safety of our prisoners while in our care. This has been well used across the U.S., but also in other services, and helps with alcohol, drug-related, or even suicide. So someone, they try to tie something around their neck, maybe the dispatch doesn't see that, which they're busy, and we want to have continuous contact-free monitoring. So it's actually something I did put in the budget for the capital budget to have some support for the prisoner cells, and perhaps even trying it for 3 of the cells and see how it works. And if the board is happy with the monitoring system and how it works, what happens if a prisoner does stop breathing? That alarm goes off to our comms. It gives immediate response to officers and to EMS as well. The dispatch would call EMS. There is some information that I'll send to the board as well. However, there's an upfront fee of about $5,000 per unit, and then it's a monitoring fee of approximately $100 per unit as well. So I had the initial information, but I can send the board further information as far as the cost and what this is going to look like. But I know in speaking to other colleagues, they're very happy with the system in their cells, and I think it's this added layer of protection that we could have for our community, especially our more vulnerable people, to ensure that they're looked after while in our care.
Okay, well, thank you. Any comments or questions? It's
The
already in the budget.
$100, that's a monitoring a month or a year?
Yeah, per month.
Per
Yeah.
unit or
Per unit. Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at 3.
3.
Yeah.
You say some of our cells have 2 beds in them?
Just one, yeah.
Just one bed.
Yeah.
So would it be able to look after both beds, or?
Yeah,
That's
so
interesting.
so they were, when I had asked that question, so the chances of us having 2 people in one bed without somebody in there, that wouldn't happen. Usually we just have one person.
Correct.
So because, you wouldn't be sure what that would be coming from. So when we fill our cells, for example, if there was a drug takedown project, we always have people there. When they do wash court on the weekends, and OPP bring people in for wash because we do the virtual court in Smith Falls, there's people there. So this would be when you have one prisoner care, because I'd asked the same question too. Yeah.
Can we get away with 2?
Yeah, that's my
Can
question.
we get away with 2?
Yeah.
We could try 2 and see.
2's better than none, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Just think to,
And if you
to
can,
see if it works, not into the extra cash, just to keeping some things down.
Yeah.
I think I would support 2 of them at this point.
Yeah. And again, this is something to propose for the 2025 budget. Obviously, when the budget's approved, that's when I would look forward in 2025. This isn't for 2024.
It's shown here. It's in here.
Yeah,
I'm 2.
It's under
Okay.
IT,
Okay.
isn't it?
No, it's all right. It's in the capital because of the infrastructure upgrade too.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's not going to affect your operational, Rob. So.
Okay, thank you. Next one, board honorarium, and under the new act, I guess, and this is something we've never discussed, the board level, is the honorarium to board members. And rather, again, running short on time, what I'm going to ask is that if Stephanie can just check with other municipal boards, maybe check 4 or 5, maybe similar size, and see what the honorarium is there, and then come back for a December meeting and maybe more of a discussion once we know maybe where we sit.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yep, no problem.
Okay?
And sorry, Rod, the monitoring fee would be operational because it'd be a monthly.
no, I just-
the one up, yeah,
Wasn't sure if it was
yeah,
per unit or just per.
yeah. But again, we
router
can,
per se.
yeah, I just wanted to present that to the
Yep.
board now for 2025. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Operational report.
Yes.
So during the month of October, we responded to 720 calls for service. And of note, there was 121 criminal charges laid. We had 15 IPV cases, 10 assault reports, 5 break and enters, 3 were solved, including Valley had put a post out on their page about their break and enter being solved. It doesn't take, sometimes when you know your police and the police know the bad guys, like it was pretty quick to figure out who they were. 11 breaches for bail, 1 sexual assault reported, and 11 drug offenses. We had 21 calls for service with a 5% apprehension rate, 2 hour, 16-minute average wait time, the highest being that 2 hour and 40 minutes. We showed a decrease in mental health calls and apprehension wait time from September because in September the highest wait time was 7 hours long, so that really puts the overall average up. So 27 collisions, we had some high collisions, nobody badly injured thankfully, but people running lights. 1 was right in front of an officer, so it was perfect on camera, and thankfully nobody was injured, but pedestrians being hit. Now a couple of them, it was pedestrians at fault running in front of traffic or a bike, and again thankfully there was no serious injuries. 50 traffic complaints, 91 stops, vehicle stops, and charges laid were 59 relating to speed, stop signs, lights, failing to yield, driving under suspension, careless driving, and handheld device. And when we spoke to the Solicitor General, I don't know if you've noticed, Bill, they're proposing in Bill 223, Safer Streets, Stronger Community Act. I'm going to send you the link. It's really an interesting one that they're trying to push through, and having like private areas such as parking lots, businesses, that as being offenses that police could lay charges, because now it's criminal, be like a dangerous driving, but you got people that whip through, you know, a drive-through lane, like over at where Tim Hortons is for Brockville Street. I almost got T-boned. Someone comes flying through the parking lot to get to the drive-through. So things like that, they're looking at a lot of different additions for police powers, and one of them is laying charges on private property and businesses like yourselves. So that'll be helpful. 7 charges laid under the Compulsory Automobile Insurance Act. 4 charges laid criminally for impaired driving a motor vehicle with over 80 milligrams of alcohol, so that's over 80 as well. Flight from police, a failure to stop, and failure to comply with a probation order at a traffic stop. We did 10 hours of foot patrol, 25 hours of visiting in the schools, 21 hours of other community service, so visiting WAC, for example, or other agencies. Regular patrol for community events, like they were very proactive in Halloween, giving out candy and just being out there and very visible, obviously, as well as the parade. I'm sure he highlights that later on, the downtown. The STEP initiative for October was seatbelt enforcement. There were 7 charges laid. 1 was like a toddler wasn't secured properly, and their seatbelt assembly was removed, so that's pretty dangerous. Officers conducted several seatbelt blitzes throughout October and Thanksgiving weekend as part of the Operation Impact. And STEP for November is intersection safety, so targeting the intersections and stop signs. Our CIB have been busy with our missing person, both Bertram and Thompson. That's an ongoing investigation with OPP. Assist with the vehicle that was located in the water, that garnered some social media attention. But of course, no stones unturned, right? We have 2 missing people. We don't, we follow every single lead that we follow. That was actually from Sturgeon Falls, 1997, that vehicle was.
27 years
Yeah.
later. It's almost
Yeah.
unfathomable.
It was, I know. We investigated the death of a 23-year-old that was in distress and unfortunately jumped from a moving vehicle and passed away. We had training statements and assisted with break and enter investigation as well with that break and enter. Our community service officer, he's always busy. He did a lot of road shifts, 13 road shifts during the month to cover for staff shortages. He did some lockdown school drills, which are important, and especially with our newer staff to get to know our schools and where they go and if there's ever a problem at the school. Some threat assessment, risk assessments that we do with kids that are high risk at schools. We did the Stuff a Cruiser campaign. That was a great success, and of course participated in the Turkey Trot at St. Francis, which is always their tradition. And we got Chris all garbed up and dressed like a turkey. Halloween Safety Patrol, that was a lot of fun for our members as well. It was a really nice day. A lot of kids out. I was downtown as well, and there was a lot of kids out downtown. So hats off to, I think, Sherry Axford and her team, the DPIA, I believe, that organized that. That's pretty amazing. Situation table meeting, MCERT meeting, Crime Stoppers, and Proceeds of Crime grant presentation he did. That's part of our grant funding that we do with R&J, doing safety presentations. That just gives you a highlight of our criminal record checks that we do staff-wise, that he just added to it. First Responders Camp for females was very successful. I wasn't able to go this year, but we sent two, Ashley Ferrier and Corinne Gauthier went Friday night, and Ashley spent both days there. It was a great hands-on experience for females, and certainly across this Lanark County, they're still underrepresented in fire and police as well. So it just gives them an idea of what it's like to try on fire gear. They climb the ladder and do some scenarios with police and with the ambulance, and they had K9 there. So there was just some pictures that they took. And this is just our highlight with Chris and us swearing Andrew in and the turkey chop parade. So I think that's it. That's the deputy's report for
Okay.
October.
Questions or comments? Thank you. It's obviously busy as usual, but appreciate the update.
That's okay. That's what I get paid for.
The only thing I'll mention, just as it relates to traffic, my other role, I brought a motion to committee of the whole a couple weeks ago about the town staff prepare and do some investigation into methods we can take to calm traffic and to try and help improve driver behavior. So that could include, as an example, red light cameras or speeding cameras. These things that where we employ technology, and obviously Chief will be involved in those discussions. I think we know that driver behavior is atrocious. I mean, I don't think how many times, if you pay attention when you're at an intersection, the cars that will not stop on a red light, turning right, or rolling through stop signs, or both. I had that yesterday. Just one went around the corner from Beckwith on to Chambers. They were stopped at the red, went through the intersection at Market. And so I don't know what role we can play municipally, but to try and help the police with the work that they do. So staff will be coming back to council with that in the future. And at that, I guess I'll suggest we should probably meet before the first budget meeting with council. So how about 2 weeks from today would be the 4th? And I think we could probably be fairly quick. Mostly budget, but if anything else that may be time sensitive, we could introduce to the agenda as well. But 4th works.
I don't think I'll be back.
Can you participate remotely?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to do 8 a.m. or do we want to do later?
Do you want to do 8 or 9?
What's best for everybody else? It's fine.
You'll be away on vacation. We'll do it for 9.
Yes, that's nice. 9.
Okay, 9 o'clock then. Okay, motion for adjournment. Moved by Rob, second by Chris. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.
I'm just sending a message saying we're off.